Administrator Pruitt, I appreciate you doing that. You were kind enough to offer me this interview because of our shared interest in baseball. Obviously, a lot of other major issues about your tenure we want to get to as well, but I want to start with, you ran a minor league baseball team. How did that prepare you for this job?
Well, the baseball business is a great business to begin with, and minor league baseball particularly, has a lot of the revenue streams that they have at the big league level, from season tickets to food and beverage to sponsorships, but we don't have the payroll. So it's a great business model because the parent club has the contract and provides the players and managers. So it's really a front office kind of approach, and enjoyed my time as an owner.
But this is a big agency, so did that prepare you for this?
I mean, we had hundreds of employees. I mean, it's a little bit different when you have almost 15,000, between 14 and 15,000. But what was very similar is mission. We had a mission there, just like businesses set out goals and set objectives and have mission. When we arrived here, that really wasn't the case. You had a lot of, I think, fundamental responsibilities that were not being focused upon, and we have brought, I think, a focus to those areas from Superfund to, Tosca to airtainment across the board, and making sure that we set goals from airtainment to water quality. I mean, you look at what happened in Flint, Michigan. You look at what happened in Gold King, Colorado. The investment in water infrastructure in this country to prevent those kinds of things from happening. The president has made a big commitment to infrastructure, but not just roads and bridges.
Sure.
The water infrastructure. So
and the president has given you a lot of credit for cutting regulations, but you've also gotten into a lot of trouble. And you've said yesterday, this is a toxic environment. But do you take responsibility for any mistakes you've made here in Washington?
Well, I think, first let me talk about the regulatory reform. I mean, the purpose of the regulatory reform effort is to provide certainty to those that we regulate. And what we've seen the last several years among several sectors of our economy is tremendous uncertainty and almost a weaponization of the agency against certain sectors of our economy, which has caused low growth. And the president came in and said, we're going to deal with regulations, we're going to pass a tax cut package. And what's happened? Extraordinary growth.
Sure.
This agency contributed to $1 billion in savings last year on regulation. And it's regulation that this hasn't gone away. It's regulation that's provided certainty.
Right.
So it's protecting the environment, but also providing cost savings. Now, another issue, look, I do believe that as we do our work, Ed, as we're focused on these types of things, they are transformational, and anytime that you do transformational things, there are critics and there are people that come against you in that regard. Because this place has been, it's been a place for years that has been used by the left, the environmental left, to advance an agenda of picking winners and losers in the marketplace.
Sure, but you're saying you're in trouble because the left is coming after you?
I didn't say that I was in trouble. I said that they're big critics.
Okay, so why did you then accept $50 a night to rent a condo from the wife of a Washington lobbyist?
Well, let's talk about that, because that individual that owned that apartment is an Oklahoman. I've known that person for years.
Mr. Hart says that he doesn't know you that well. He said that he saw you at the prayer breakfast recently. He doesn't know you that well.
That's not what he said. He said he saw me at the prayer breakfast recently.
Yeah.
But I've known Steve for several years. The point of it is this. The ethics officials here at this agency reviewed the lease, reviewed the terms of the lease.
When did they review it?
They reviewed it as this issue
in
arose.
March of this year, right? After you moved out?
But that's what is important. They've reviewed the terms of the lease, Ed.
After the fact.
And let me finish, if
Sure.
I can. They reviewed the terms of the lease. And this is a situation, Ed, I was living out of a suitcase when I transitioned to Washington, D.C. My wife was not with me. My children were not with me. My dog was not with me. And literally, I was traveling kind of with. And what's interesting about this criticism, these same individuals that are criticizing this criticize me for being gone too much, traveling throughout the country. Okay, so you can't have it both ways.
Let's focus on the actual issue. But every cabinet secretary comes here, and they're living out of a suitcase. But they rent an apartment at the actual rate.
Yeah, this is the actual rate, and that's what the ethics officials said.
So
and let me say this to you.
Rent Jungle is a website that looks at that, and the average rent in Washington is over $2,000 a month.
Not for what I rented.
$50 a
Not
night.
for what I rented. Not for what this was like an Airbnb situation, Ed.
It's not. It's a block from the Capitol.
It was like an Airbnb situation. When I was not there, the landlord, they had access to the entirety of the facility. When I was there, I only had access to a room. There were common areas. They used the facility at the same time that I was there.
So you only paid for the nights you rent. You were there.
That's exactly right.
But that's kind of a sweetheart deal because your house in Oklahoma, you pay a mortgage on that. And when you don't sleep there, when you don't sleep there, you still pay the mortgage, right?
Not when I'm not using. Yes, but this is a tremendous difference. I wasn't using the facility, Ed, when I wasn't there, and that was.
But if I pay rent in Washington over $2,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, that's the average according to various websites, and just common sense around.
And you know there were
count.
comps, Ed. There were comps done by
I gotta pay for the whole
ethics
month.
officials here. There were comps done. If you can go, you could go on Craigslist today, and it's been done in the last
But a
week.
cabinet secretary is going to go on Craigslist to rent an
today
apartment?
shows rentals for one bedroom of less than $1,000. So, on Capitol Hill near.
I've
the
never
area.
heard of an apartment like that. I've lived in Washington over 25 years.
Well, that is something that, again, has been reviewed by ethics officials here. They've said that it's market rate. That's been,
Okay.
these are career ethics
Right,
officials.
and they
Ed.
said that in March of this year after you'd moved out, right?
I moved out of this place last summer.
Right,
I was
but
only
you
there a
got
few
the
months.
ethics
And-
letter this year.
Because there was a question made about whether it was
So
ethical or not.
why didn't
So
you get it on the way in?
But let me ask you this. Why does it matter when the ethics officials look at the lease and the terms of the lease to determine whether it's ethical
Why
or
does
not?
it matter? It's because you're renting it from the wife of a lobbyist.
Yeah. Who has no business before this agency.
Hold on a second. So
Who has no
Mr.
business-
Hart is at Williams & Jensen, right? Major lobbying firm. ExxonMobil is the client.
Mr. Hart
Does
has no
ExxonMobil
clients.
have business before you, sir?
Mr. Hart has no clients that has business before this agency.
ExxonMobil has no
his
business.
firm. He's a member of a law firm. To take his relationship and
You're not answering the question.
extend it to third
Does
parties.
ExxonMobil have business before
To
the
extend
EPA?
it to third parties in his firm is absolutely a stretch. But Ed, let me say this to you. You asked me whether this is about the toxicity in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I will tell you it is. It's
Why?
about the mission that we're engaged in here. And this arrangement is, again, been signed off, as I've indicated to you. And
After you moved
it's
out.
been stated by the ethics officials here, career ethics officials. This individual doesn't have clients that have business before this agency. And at the same time, we are doing these very important things, and the criticism, I think this is just one of things that people bring up
Okay,
as
you still haven't
criticism.
answered if ExxonMobil has business before you.
The firm...
Millions, if not billions of
Steve
business.
Hart does not represent ExxonMobil.
Okay, his firm also has, if I hope this pronounced this right, Cheniere Energy,
He does,
natural gas
It's
producer.
my understanding they don't represent them at this point.
They have.
Yeah,
They've got business.
But again, Steve has never represented them.
So I asked you before and you didn't answer.
Well,
do you
I'm endeavoring to answer,
Do you
but-
take
but-
responsibility for any mistakes you've made?
As you look at this situation, Ed, absolutely it's something that it was done the right way. There's a lease in place. It was fair market value, and it's been shown as such.
It's not fair market
It
value
is. It
because the
absolutely
average, you
is.
go to any website that looks at it, it's over
We
$2,000
paid
a month for a one bedroom.
Yeah, we paid $1,500 a month.
Right, so that's less than
for
$2,000.
use of one room when I was there.
Okay.
And the rest of the rest of the space was common area. Ed.
Now-
so that is dramatically different than you pointing at a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom.
No, one
apartment.
bedroom,
Whatever it
2,000.
is, when you point to an apartment on Capitol Hill and use those kinds of numbers, it isn't apples. It's not apples to apples.
Didn't President Trump-
you're not being fair with respect to with the comparison.
Didn't President Trump say he's going to drain the swamp?
And let me ask you this: is $1 billion in savings draining the swamp
Well,
in regulation?
if you answer my
as you
question-
look across
Sure.
the administration, $8 billion in cost and deregulation, absolutely.
You've saved a lot of money. You also spent a lot of money. You went to Morocco with 7 staffers.
As part of it, do you know that we had career EPA officials there a week before?
So
working
why'd
on a
you go to
memor-
Morocco? How much did that
Because
cost?
there was a memorandum of understanding that we've had with Morocco for years on air quality. You know what's interesting about these criticisms about international?
Well, how much? You're not answering. How much did it
I
cost,
will
sir?
answer it, but
you
you know
just
what's
said you saved $1 billion. So pardon me. How much did you spend in Morocco on taxpayer money?
So Ed, what's interesting about these international trips? I was at the G7 in June, right after the Paris decision was made. I was there for 4 days, meeting with my counterparts at the G7. I was in Morocco in December. That's the only 2 trips I took.
For what?
Both
7,
of
8
those
days?
No,
Several days.
Not 7 or 8 days. I don't know the number of days, but it was far less than that.
So how much did you spend? You still haven't answered.
But the 2 trips, Ed,
Yeah.
that I took were all an advancement of air quality issues, environmental issues to this country. You know, we don't think about this, but when you look at issues like ozone and challenges we have with national ambient air quality standard, a lot of the challenge we have is because of international transport of air pollution.
So you saved $1 billion on regulations, but
so-
you don't know how much you spent of the taxpayer money. Hard-working taxpayers, they give Washington a lot of money in tax money. You've talked about this when you were Attorney General of Oklahoma. People are overtaxed.
Yeah.
They have to pay all this money. And then you go to Morocco, you can't tell me right now how much it costs?
Well, the question, Ed, is this. What was the business that we were conducting there, and how
But how
important
much
it is
did
to
it
this?
cost? I'm giving you that.
We'll get you those
You
numbers.
do important business.
Yeah,
But how much does it cost?
I think both trips total
Yeah.
were a little bit over $100,000.
Okay.
You know, and you compare that to previous administrators that have been in my position, it compares very favorably.
So, President Trump-
I think when the previous administrators went to Rome, they spent roughly $40,000 or $50,000, and we were in that range.
So President Trump
it's very
said
comparable.
President Trump said he would drain the swamp.
I don't look.
Is draining the swamp renting an apartment from the wife of a Washington lobbyist?
I don't think that that's even remotely fair to ask that question. Really? I have access.
President Trump attacked lobbyists every day of the week on the campaign trail.
And what is being done in
swamp.
substance? What is being done in substance to attack that? What is being done at this agency
cutting
and across the federal
regulations.
government? That's
We've
exactly right.
that.
And so when you see, look what we've done on cost savings. We're at Reagan-era levels right now, Ed, with respect to this agency. And doing more with less.
And the president has applauded
doing more
for
of
that.
And doing more with regulation. When you say, is that draining the swamp? My arrangement with a lease for 4 to 5 months that has been signed off by ethics officials here at this agency, career ethics officials, is in no way reflective.
Will you release the copy of the lease?
Is in no way reflective.
Will you release a copy of the lease?
Of the president's commitment to draining the swamp.
But will you release a copy?
I think it's a matter of, I've shared it with ethics officials here if they think it's appropriate.
So you won't release it publicly?
I didn't, Ed.
Will you?
I've given that to ethics officials, and if I'm advised that I can release that, I will.
Okay, and so in terms of draining the swamp, do you think if an Obama cabinet official rented an apartment here in Washington from the wife of a Washington lobbyist, you don't think Donald Trump and
You know what I think about it?
You know what
I think about it, Ed? You know what I think about it, Ed? They weren't even looking at those issues back then.
Well, we're looking at them now.
There are members of Congress that have for years rented rooms on Capitol Hill, the C Street area.
So it's a swamp. You've said it's a swamp, Donald Trump.
No,
but you're not changing it then. You're doing the same thing they did, you're saying.
Ed,
if they did it, it's okay for you.
No, I didn't say that.
I'm not saying that at all. Congressmen have been doing it. You said if the Obama people did it, the media wouldn't cover it. So if it happened before, why aren't you changing?
So Ed, here's the point I'm trying to make. You asked me whether there'd been criticism, would have been criticism with respect to previous cabinet officials and Obama. The fact of the matter is nobody's even asking the questions back then. Here's why they weren't. Because they weren't getting things done like this administration. That's why those questions are being asked. And I will tell you this, when you look at the issue and the facts, which most people don't, but when you look at the facts of what I leased and what I paid for, it is absolutely 100% ethical, and it was signed off and is legal.
Now, if you're committed to the Trump agenda, why did you go around the president and the White House and give pay raises to 2 staffers here?
I did not. My staff did, and I found out about that yesterday, and I changed it.
So,
PPO process should have been respected, and I issued a statement yesterday walking back those pay raises that should not have been done.
So somebody being fired for that?
That should not have been done. And
so who did it?
It may be there would be some accountability.
A career person or a political person?
I'll have to. I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know. You run the agency. You don't know who did this.
I found out about this yesterday, and I corrected the action.
So
and we are in the process of finding out how it took place and correcting it going forward.
Both of these staffers who got these large pay raises are friends of yours, I believe, from Oklahoma, right?
They are staffers here in the agency.
Then they're they're friends of yours.
Well, they serve a very important person.
And you didn't know that they got these large pay raises?
I did not know that they got the pay raises until yesterday.
Okay, one of them got a pay raise of, let's see, $28,000. The other was $56,000. Do you know what the median income in this country is?
No, what
$57,000 a year.
Okay.
So one of your friends from Oklahoma got a pay raise that's the medium income.
They did not get a pay raise. They did not get a pay raise.
They did.
No, they did not. They did not. I stopped that yesterday.
So you stopped it.
Yeah.
But are you embarrassed that
it should
you
not
run
have
this agency?
It should not have happened. And the officials that were involved in that process should not have done what they did.
So
they should not have gone around PPO to use whatever the presidential personnel office. And look, there was authority to do it. It was not a legal issue. There was authority to do it, and it should not have been done. And Ed, you asked me about 15,000 employees. Mm-hmm. I am focused on a few things here at the agency as far as regulatory reform.
But
when personnel matters and administrative matters are actually conducted, you've got people around you that you trust that are making those kind of decisions. And these people are hardworking individuals.
Okay.
One of them has worked very, very closely on the Waters of the United States rules.
And they're friends of yours.
So they've worked very diligently on many things, from regulatory reform across the board. Now, what happened should not have happened.
So haven't conservatives railed against what they call crony capitalism, where you put your friends, when you get in power, you put your friends in, they get large pay raises, maybe they get contracts. You're not embarrassed by that?
Ed,
these are your friends.
I would say to you that I've said unequivocally that what took place here should not have taken place.
Okay.
And I learned about it yesterday. I did not know about the pay raise. I did not approve the process. The process was breached by individuals here at this agency, and there's going to be accountability there. Those individuals, that should not have happened. I can't say any clearer than that.
Let me go back to where I started.
Yeah.
You challenged me at the very top and said, I haven't made, there are not problems. I'm not in trouble, I believe you said. When people are going around you and giving a pay raise of $56,000, you don't know about it until yesterday, and the White House is furious?
Do you know today, Ed, I still don't have a deputy at this agency?
Okay.
Do you know that I didn't get a general counsel until December?
Is that because the Senate Democrats not approving?
Do you know that I still don't have heads of my chemical office and my land and emergency management? Do you know that I didn't have leadership? The first month or two I was here, I literally had a couple of folks, my chief of staff and my assistant.
So we know the Senate Democrats have obstructed. They've blocked your nominee.
This is a very important point,
Sure,
Ed.
go for it.
So when you have no staff, or you have a deficiency of staff, the deputy of the agency, the number 2 of the entire agency, in April of 2018, I still don't have. And you want to come in here and say that, Scott, you've got to know about all these issues when I don't have. That's what the deputy is focused upon.
Well, hold on, Scott.
That's
you
what
started
the deputy,
the interview saying we've saved $1 billion. I'm on top of everything. We're implementing the president's agenda. Now you're telling me I don't have any deputies, and I don't know what's happening in my own agency.
I didn't say that. I said in this
You
instance,
said I don't have a deputy, I don't have this guy, I don't have that guy?
I said in this instance, I have individuals that have made decisions that should not have been made, and I corrected those decisions.
Now,
and to impute every decision at this agency to me.
I'm not imputing, I'm asking.
And I answered the question.
Have you made mistakes?
I think this is something that needs to be corrected.
And
it was
do you
a
take
mistake
responsibility?
It was a mistake by my team.
By your team. So do you take responsibility
I'm
as the
fixing
boss?
it. I'm fixing it.
Do you take responsibility?
I'm fixing the problem.
Okay, and Albert Kelly is a friend of yours, a banker from Oklahoma.
And doing an outstanding job.
He is. Okay, but when he ran Spirit Bank, he was banned from the banking industry by the FDIC. You're aware of that?
I'm aware that he had issues with the FDIC.
Because they believe he either broke the law or broke a regulation, right? Is that correct?
That is not, I don't know.
That's what they believe, the FDIC.
That is a settlement that took place between the FDIC and Mr. Kelly.
Okay.
So I'm not going to speak, I don't know the terms of that agreement or what was actually accused by Kel.
But he's been banned from the banking industry.
That is a settlement that took place between him and an individual. And let me ask you this. Serving a bank and running a bank and coming here and working on Superfund, I don't see the connection on his financial issues.
So my question is, he's banned from the banking industry. Now he's running the Superfund, which is a massive
and
program.
doing an outstanding job.
Why? What experience
job.
does he have to run the Superfund?
You know, because what's broken with respect to our Superfund portfolio is management and leadership.
He got kicked out of the banking industry, sir.
1,340 plus sites across the country, many of which have been on that list for over 3
he was
decades.
Kicked out of the banking industry, but he's a great manager?
3 decades where Superfund sites have been languishing. And in the time we've been here, we'll have almost 30 sites come off the list this year, and we had 7 last year come off the list. If you ask career individuals here, Ed, and if you ask political folks too, all the folks that are involved in the Superfund portfolio, they will tell you that area is doing far better than it's ever done in the past.
But to be clear, the man who's
you're taking a private situation in Oklahoma, a business-related transaction in Oklahoma, which you don't know about the terms of it, and nor do I.
Well, the FDIC.
Nor do I.
Hang on. I don't know all the details.
And
but
this
the
individual,
FDIC banned him from the banking industry,
this individual is doing an outstanding job.
So he gets
serving
banned.
this agency and serving the American
He gets banned
people.
from the banking
Ask
industry.
the people in St. Louis.
He gets banned.
Ask
and
the
then
people
you
in San
hire
Jacinto.
him with taxpayer money to work at the EPA. He's your friend.
That is absolutely 100% wrong, Ed.
You didn't hire him?
Absolutely wrong.
Is he your friend? Was he
your
your banker?
assertion here that
Was he
there's
your
some
banker?
connection between his activity in Oklahoma and his ability to lead
I
the
didn't say there was
Superfund
connection. I'm
portfolio.
saying he was your friend, and he was your banker in Oklahoma. He did mortgages for you?
I had multiple banks I used in Oklahoma.
But
multiple banks.
Did you use his bank, yes or no?
I had accounts.
You did. You had a relationship with him.
I had multiple
banks. And then you
banks in
hire
Oklahoma.
him on the government payroll.
Yeah, and he's serving the
You don't see
American
that
people.
as a problem?
What's the problem, Ed?
He's your friend, and you're putting him on
What
the
is he doing for
payroll.
the American people leading the Superfund portfolio?
What experience does he have in the environmental background?
The results that they're achieving. That's the experience.
Okay.
What we're achieving there.
You say you're...
Now, you see, that's something you just skip over.
Well, tell me about the achievement.
You just skip over.
What experience does he have?
I would love, Ed, I thought we were going to talk about, substantive issues.
We are talking about
We're talking about substantive
You just
issues
told me
about what's
that
happening here at the
yesterday
agency.
you learned that somebody got a $56,000 pay raise and you knew nothing about it. That's not substance?
Well, let me ask you this. This question about Mr. Kelly. How much are you asking about the Superfund turnaround that we've seen the last year?
So what's the turnaround?
We'll have almost 30 sites off the list this year. It's
You'll have 30.
Almost never been done. It's never been done in history.
So how are you doing that without all these nominees that Chuck Schumer blocked?
Leadership and management. So that entire area, from Kel to Slovenia, a career individual, there are people, the regions across the country are working with a great deal of focus. We had a task force that we started last May, 42 recommendations, and it's yielding tremendous outcomes.
So you didn't support the president back in the primaries, and this happens a lot where Republicans or Democrats, you'll support another candidate. But you said some pretty tough stuff. You said about the president, quote, and this is in 2016, I think he's an empty vessel when it comes to things like the Constitution and rule of law. You said that about Donald Trump.
in February of 2016. And I will tell you, as I said here today, as I've walked with him and served him, I didn't know the president at that time.
So why did you say something like that?
I had not served him at that time. And
You
I will
said
tell
he was
you,
an empty
and I will tell you
vessel.
the changes that we've seen take place, his commitment to rule of law, his commitment to process, the regulatory changes we've seen are his leadership making it happen.
And you also
so I was
said-
look, I was misinformed and I was ill-informed,
Okay.
and that was a statement that I should not have made because I didn't know the president at that time. He is leading a transformation to this economy through regulatory reform and economic policy, and that's something that I think is bearing out.
Why do you have a blanket waiver to fly first class?
I don't have a blanket waiver.
You don't? So
I do not.
You've been flying first class a lot.
I have not lately. I mean, I've made that
Lately.
change I made that change earlier this year. And it was all because of a security assessment. The Inspector General at this agency, Ed, last June, did a security assessment, May-June timeframe, where they said the quantity of threats and the type of threats were unprecedented. We had dozens of pending death threats against me as an individual. It had never been seen in history. And changes were made to ensure my safety that included my ability to exit a plane expeditiously if an incident arose. We have law enforcement stationed on the jetway as I leave certain locations. And that was a security-based assessment that took place.
Your safety is obviously important in all
Well,
cabinet
look, and
secretaries.
I have an obligation. Particularly when you look at what happened at a baseball field last year.
So-
These things are unexpected. And let me tell you this: when I have an obligation to listen to those security personnel, and they told me that changes need to be made. I was flying coach prior to that, Ed. The security assessment took place, and there was a commitment to try to get me off the plane expeditiously if an incident
So what's your
arose.
message to Republicans? These are not Democrats. Carlos Carbello, a Republican from Florida, yesterday said your, quote, corruption scandals are an embarrassment, grossly disrespectful to American taxpayers, and you should resign.
I think if he was informed about the specifics of these matters, perhaps he'd have a different perspective. But all I can do, Ed, is focus on getting the job done from the administration's perspective, which we are doing and will continue to do. Yesterday, we announced the midterm evaluation in the midst of all this. And guess what? We're making progress there. Later this week, we're going to continue that and visiting about NAAQS reform, Ambient Air Quality Standards Program reform. We're working on RIM-related issues for RFS. We've got a lot of issues out there that we're getting done for the American people to make sure that we don't see this competition between jobs and the environment.
You had a phone call with the president a couple of nights ago. How did that go?
The president and I talk often, and he offered encouraging words to me, and I enjoy serving him and serving the agenda that we've set out together.
And you know, he's said to other cabinet secretaries, you're doing a great job, and then they've disappeared a few days later. Are you worried that you're going to be fired?
I can tell you that we are focused on the job here at the agency and doing it well. And I think that he and others recognize that across the country. And it's making a big difference. Ed, I have to go back. You know, what is really driving this? And I believe it's because of again, the effectiveness of the agenda. And you look back at previous administrators who have been change agents. They've experienced similar challenges as well. In my baseball days, one of the things I learned is persistence.
Yep.
One of the greatest lessons of baseball is if you get 3 hits out of 10, you're considered a superstar, but you failed 7 out of 10.
Hall of Famer.
You know, getting up and continuing that and being persistent is something that we're focused upon. And look, there are things that we must and should change here from a structural perspective going forward, making sure that regulatory reform continues, and that's happening in 2018 and beyond.
So
my focus is on his agenda.
It's because
My
you're
focus is on
enacting
serving
so
him.
much change, you think people are coming after you.
I don't think it's even a question. I mean, let me ask, what was the perception of this agency before we arrived?
About
what was the perception of this agency before President Trump in the White House? It was an agency that was being used to weaponize against coal, weaponize against fossil fuels, picking winners and losers, saying that we can't be about what? Jobs and growth and also the environment. It is a radical change. It is a transformational change for us to lead this agency and for the president to say we're going to approach things differently. And when that takes place, worldviews clash, individuals don't like it, particularly the environmental left. Those groups had their reign at this office and this agency before we arrived.
So last
that's
question.
that's
When you're
cleaning the
enacting-
swamp.
when
That's
you're-
cleaning the swamp.
When you're enacting that much change, though, don't you have to be more careful with how you spend the taxpayer money? Who's getting
But those
pay raises?
trips that we took, those trips were important trips for the American people. And as those trips take place, we have security that has to go. I don't make those decisions. They have to go. They have to provide security. There are staffers that are there even before I arrive. We were working on a memorandum of understanding with Morocco a week or two before I even arrived, and it culminated in February of this year. It's been an MOU for years that we've had in place with Morocco, and it was up for renegotiation as part of the free trade agreement. So those are very important matters. And to think, I mean, this criticism is an example of going to Italy for the G7, meeting with my bilateral meetings with Germany and Japan and others to talk about our decision in Paris a week after Paris. I mean, I don't, frankly, it's something I look at and say that is absolutely a necessity and obligation to do our job here at the agency.
But no regrets about the deal with the wife of a lobbyist?
That lease, that arrangement is absolutely and was absolutely the type of arrangement, the terms reflected the cost that I paid.
And
that's the long and short of it.
Are you renting from a lobbyist now, or what are you doing?
My wife's in town, my dog's in town, and we live on Capitol Hill, again, in an apartment.
So Harry Truman said if you want a friend in Washington, you should get a dog. I guess you already have one.
I had one before I arrived, so he's still my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.